Pamprepius was a philosopher and a pagan poet who rebelled against the Eastern Roman Emperor Zeno.Damascius described him as a brilliant poet, Malchus as an acute politician, but ugly, arrogant, unscrupulous and treacherous. Rhetorius, an Egyptian astrologer, called him a charlatan and a libertine. He has been compared to Claudian, as both these poets enjoyed 8 years of political power at the side of usurpers. He is considered the last pagan poet. His life is known with unusual precision, as his horoscope calculated by Rhetorius in the early 6th century has been found. Biography. Education. Pamprepius was born in Egypt, at Panopolis, near Thebes, on the 29th of September 440. The discovery of a horoscope, which has been identified with that of Pamprepius, let us know that he was born at 1548. He was ugly, but he had considerable intellectual qualities. He devoted himself to literature, especially to poetry. Probably he belonged to the school of Nonnus of Panopolis, a native of his own city. He became very famous as a poet in his country. At the age of 33 years, in 473, he moved to Greece, where he spent much time in Athens, marrying a rich woman and becoming a professor of grammar. At the same time he studied philosophy under the Neoplatonic philosopher Proclus, who had, among his students, the Roman general Marcellinus, the Western Roman Emperor Anthemius, and the consuls Illustrius Puseius and Messius Phoebus Severus. In Athens he had found a patron in Theogenes, an important citizen of Athens, possibly a magistrate, who was also a supporter of Proclus's. In his honor Pamprepius composed a poem. However, Pamprepius later came into conflict with Theogenes, even suffering physical damages, which Theogenes investigated in a case held against Pamprepius. It is possible that the reason for this attack was linked to his ambition to become the most famous of all philosophers, but Proclus, because of his clash with Theogenes, he was obliged to leave Athens in haste. Collaborator of Ilus. From Athens he went to Constantinople, where he arrived in May 476. Here he introduced himself as a magician or an initiator and achieved fame thanks to his culture and his professional skills. An officer called Marsus introduced him to the powerful Ilus, the Magisterium Militum of the Emperor Zeno. All three of these men were Isaurians. Pamprepius earned Ilus's favor reading out a speech on the soul. Ilus used his own influence to have Pamprepius appointed professor, defraying the cost of his public salary with his personal funds, and sending him a number of students. Pamprepius's close relationship with and influence over Ilus again inspired the envy of many. His reputation suffered from his practice of paganism and divination in the heavily Christian city of Constantinople. Among his enemies were Emperor Zeno and the Dowager Empress Verina. Once, while Ilus was traveling to his native Isauria, Pamprepius was sentenced to exile by the emperor on charges of attempting to use his divination skills in favor of Ilus and against Zeno. He was, therefore, sent to Pergamum. Ilus, who was well aware that his own friendship had led to the poet's exile, welcomed Pamprepius at his own home and, on his return to the capital, brought Pamprepius back with him. Ilus had Pamprepius appointed senator, honorary consul, quaestor sacri palatii, and, after some time, patricius, a most prestigious position. In 479 Marcian, son of the late Western Emperor Anthemius and brother of Zeno, revolted and laid siege to the Eastern Emperor in Constantinople. Initially Ilus lost heart, but Pamprepius declared that Providence was on the side, and when Ilus captured the rebels, Pamprepius gained a reputation for clairvoyance. Since then, Ilus always kept Pamprepius close to him and consulted him frequently. The two spent the winter of 479–480 at Nicaea, as Pamprepius was unpopular in Constantinople. revolt against Zeno. In late 481 or early 482, Pamprepius went to Egypt, meeting representatives of the pagan community at Alexandria. He tried to persuade them to help him in a revolt against Zeno, showing them oracles and prophecies that foretold the imminent collapse of Christianity. However, he did not gain the support. He also took part in the disputes between the various Christian sects, supporting the patriarchal candidacy of the Nicene John Tauler against the monophysite Peter Mongus, but again he was unsuccessful. The power plays at court, involving Zeno, Verena, Ilus and Ariadne, daughter of Verena and wife of Zeno, degenerated into a riot, in which Ilus was the target of 2 assassination attempts by Verena and Ariadne. In 484, as he had been appointed Magister Militum per Orientem, Ilus decided to withdraw from the court and move with Pamprepius to Nicaea, where he assumed office and recuperated from a wound suffered in the second assassination attempt. While there, however, Ilus started a rebellion against Zeno, elevating to the throne Leontius, a Syrian officer, and appointing Pamprepius as his Magister Officiorum. After some initial victories, Ilus's troops were defeated by the army of Zeno and forced to take refuge in the fortress of Papirius, in Isauria. Ilus discovered that Pamprepius wanted to betray his fellows to save himself, and in November 484 put him to death and had his head thrown over the battlements of the fortress. According to some modern scholars, Pamprepius did not want to betray his patron, but the failure of his political schemes was interpreted as deception by Ilus's men. Some scholars have suggested that Pamprepius's participation is a clue that the revolt of Ilus was somehow an attempt to restore paganism, but this hypothesis has not been successful among scholars. However, it is known that the rebels sought the support of the pagan community of Alexandria. In fact, they were persecuted because they were suspected of being part of Ilus's rebellion. A pagan convert to Christianity called Parallaeus wrote a letter to his former co-religionists, in which he remembers how they had prayed and sacrificed for the success of the revolt of Ilus and Pamprepius against Zeno, and how they had received many oracles foretelling the victory of the heathens, but how in the end Christianity had prevailed. Works. Pamprepius composed 2 works, now lost: Sigma Alpha Upsilon Rho Iota Kappa Isaurica, an epic poem about Isauria, the region in Asia Minor that was the country of origin of both Ilus and Zeno. It either celebrated Zeno's restoration against Basiliscus in 476, or it was a celebration of Ilus. Tau Upsilon Mu Omicron Lambda Omicron Gamma Iota Nu Pi Omicron Delta Omicron Sigma Iota of Sigma. Etymologium Expositio Prose. Some fragments have been attributed to Pamprepius, among them a panegyric to Theogenes and a lamentation on leaving Athens. Bibliography. Pamprepius's life is known through Suda, which collects under his Article 3 4 narrations not completely coherent among themselves. Pi alpha mu pi rho epsilon pi iota omicron sigma Suda, and other information is contained in the summaries of the Historia of Candidus and in the Vita Isidoria of Damascius contained in the Bibliotheca die Photius, Bibliotheca, Codices 79 and 242. Modern essays on Pamprepius are: Berry, John Bagnall, A History of the Later Roman Empire from Arcadius to Irene, Adamat Media Corporation, 2005, ISBN 1-4021-8369-0 p. 258. Grillmeyer, Alois E. Theresia Heintaler, Christ in Christian Tradition, Westminster John Knox Press, 1996, ISBN 0-664-2230001, pp. 91-92. Nagy, Gregory, Greek Literature, Routledge, 2001, ISBN 0-415-93770-1, pp. 473-481. Smith, William Ellis, Dictionary of Greek and Roman Biography and Mythology, Volume 2, p. 570. Pamprepius, Ibidem, Volume 3, pp. 104-105.